Hi everyone, and welcome to your Lettings Finance Training, the Basics Part 3. In this training we're going to be looking at sales invoices, purchase invoices, landlord payments, agency payments and contractor payments. I'm just going to jump over into Expert Agent for you. And first off we're going to look at creating sales invoices. So sales invoices are used for fees that are due to you as the agent. So these are going to be your agency fees, whether that be your monthly commission or a fixed commission, any charges you charge your landlords for creating a new let, any relet fees, any referencing fees or anything like that due from your tenants, anything basically that you're going to be claiming the money from, money you want to move from your client account, take it off your landlords or your tenants and move it into your agency account, you're going to need to create a sales invoice for. So general rule of thumb for creating sales invoices and any invoices in Expert Agent in fact, if that invoice is to be paid by your landlord, you'll need to create it on the landlord record. If it's due to be paid by the tenant, then you'll need to create it on the tenant record. And creating them in that way just ensures that you don't end up charging the wrong person for those fees. So in this example we're going to look at creating an invoice from a landlord record. So I'm just going to open my landlord record here and move on to their statement tab. And I'm going to right click, come to my financial menu and create sales invoice second from top there. The first option you'll have is assign to property. If your landlord's got multiple properties, please do ensure that you're selecting the correct property from the drop down at the top there. Charging the invoice against the wrong property is going to cause you no end of problems, so just ensure that the correct property is selected. If your invoice relates to a property that isn't one you're managing for your landlord, so it's not one you've got on your books, it's just a general invoice to the landlord, you can select the landlord only option here and that will charge it against the landlord rather than a specific property. The next option you've got down here is description. That's going to automatically generate with your landlord name if you're creating an invoice on the landlord record, or the property name if you're creating an invoice on the tenancy record. You're going to want to overtype this with something a bit more descriptive for your landlord or your tenant so they know exactly what you're charging them for. Invoice number, that's going to be automatically generated for you by Expert Agent based on the number in your configuration. My last number that I produced would have been 190, so it's now moved on to 191 for me. Invoice date, that's generally going to be today's date, but if you do need to change that for any reason, please do that using the calendar. And then you've got the option to either use one of your standard invoices that you've set up in your configuration, and that'll be listed in here. You can click on that one there. Once you've entered that, you don't need to use it exactly how it is. You can either edit the item on that invoice if you've offered a discount to this landlord for whatever reason, or if you had multiple items on the invoice and you want wanting to charge them for one of them, you can use the remove item button. Equally, if you needed to charge them for something extra, you can use the add an item button. Give that a description, choose a nominal, confirm your VAT rate and your net amount and save, and it will just add that on there. At that point you can save that back as a standard invoice again if it's going to be helpful, using the save as standard invoice button in the bottom left hand corner, and when you're happy it's just a case of saving that. And you'll now see that on my landlord's record I've got an invoice for £180 for my relet of 4 Conacher Square. You'll see also that that invoice is showing as outstanding at the moment. That means that it's been raised but not yet marked as paid, so I haven't used any funds on that landlord record to pay that invoice as of yet, so it's still currently outstanding. You'll also see that your invoice has got a downward facing arrow in the line of the statement. If I click on that, it's just going to give me a breakdown of what that invoice is made up of. So it's going to give me all the different items that are on that one invoice. So I've got my tenancy renewal fee and my deposit re-registration there. It's going to show you which nominal all of the items have been generated under. It's going to give you the net, the VAT and the gross there as well. So it'll give you the full breakdown. Now you've got the option from here of printing a copy of this invoice. Or if you didn't want to print it, you can produce a statement when you pay your landlord containing all the details, including the VAT breakdown of that invoice. So there's really no need to print them separately. But if your landlord has asked for a separate copy of a particular invoice, you can just use the print button alongside that invoice. That'll take you through to your selector template screen. If you've got an invoice already in your OWL letters set up, you can use one of those. If not, feel free to jump across into the expert agent default letters and just select your landlord invoice. And that's going to produce a sales invoice number for you with all your VAT details, the invoice number, what that invoice is for, the breakdown of all the items on the invoice, and the total there, that's the 180 due. From there you can print a copy of that, or you can email it across to your landlord. You've got the option to edit the invoice name. You can save and close, which will save a copy into the Events tab, or you can just close it. There's really no need to save and close an invoice, because if I just close that now, we can just come back to the same print and select the invoice at any point. So you can do that at any point. It's always going to be there on the statement. You just need to locate it and use that print button if you wanted another copy. So there's really no need to use that save and close option unless you want to. Okay, so that's creating a sales invoice. We're now going to look at creating a purchase invoice. So that's done in very much the same way. It's just a right click, financial, and create purchase invoice. So the main difference with this screen is you've got the option to select a contractor here. So that's the contractor that the invoice relates to. So you're just clicking choose. And finding your contractor there. As with our sales invoices, we need to assign a property to this invoice, so just ensure the correct property is selected there. You need to give your invoice a description, so this is going to be the description that you're reading off the contractor invoice. So this isn't one you're making up. You've got the contractor invoice in front of you and you're just wanting to charge that on to your landlord. So you're just giving it a name there. You're selecting the nominal for this invoice. Invoice number, that won't automatically generate for you because this isn't an invoice you're raising. You're passing on an invoice from one of your contractors. So it's just a case of entering their invoice number off of their invoice you've got. Again, invoice date, same date off the invoice in front of you. And then you're entering your net, your VAT if there is any. If not, please just pop a 0 in there. And the total amount. When you're happy with that, it's just a case of clicking save. And you'll see that now our purchase invoice is again showing on our landlord statement with the contractor's invoice number, and it's showing as outstanding because it's still to be paid. You'll notice the main difference between our sales invoice and our purchase invoice is that the purchase invoice doesn't have the downward facing arrow and the print option. The simple reason behind that is because this isn't an invoice you've generated. It's just an invoice you're passing on. You're just entering the details of the invoice that you've received onto the system to allow you to charge the landlord or the tenant for it. It's not an invoice you've generated. It doesn't make that part of your invoice numbering. If you wanted to send the landlord a copy of the actual invoice, so the actual contractor invoice, please feel free to use the Events tab, add a new event, and upload your file to the events of the landlord. That will then allow you to attach that document to your landlord statement when you're sending it out. With purchase invoices, there are a couple of further options you've got. Those are to uplift your purchase invoice or to charge a commission on your purchase invoice. So the difference between the two, a commission is a commission that you're charging to your contractor. So the contractor bills you with an agreed price. That price gets passed on to the landlord. You then charge your contractor a commission on that invoice. So this has been agreed with the contractor that for every job you give them, you will receive a commission on it. So it's a charge that's going to go to your contractor. An uplift, on the other hand, is an agreement that you've got with your landlord that for arranging the works, you will charge an additional set amount or a percentage amount on top of the cost of that invoice. So your contractor will send you an invoice, you will add your uplift on, and then you will pass that uplifted cost on to your landlord. Uplifted invoices aren't seen by HMRC as disbursements any longer. That does mean that because you're receiving the invoice in from the contractor, you are essentially taking responsibility for payment of that invoice. The invoice you are then raising and generating for your landlord, the uplifted cost, is your invoice. That's the invoice you're charging. You have to give it your invoice number. And for that reason, if you're VAT registered, your landlord will have to pay VAT on the full amount of the invoice, regardless of whether your contractor is VAT registered. So the VAT will be payable on the full amount rather than just the uplift proportion. So please make sure you and your landlord are aware of that. We'll look at generating one of each now. So it's just a right click, Financial, create purchase invoice. We're choosing our contractor again. Same as before, we're entering a description. We're selecting our nominal. We're giving it an invoice number, an invoice net, VAT and total. We're going to pop a tick in the charge commission box, and that will then populate the percentage pop-up for you. So you just need to confirm whether it's going to be that set percent that you're using, or if not, you can edit it at that point if you decided it was going to be a lesser percentage on this one, for example, and then you're saving. Okay, so that invoice looks identical as it would, just the £100 has been charged to our landlord. We'll now look at the slightly different uplift invoice. So that's again a right click Financial. We're still creating a purchase invoice and choosing our contractor. Selecting our nominal, giving our invoice a number, selecting our net, VAT and total. And this time we're ticking uplift invoice. So you've got the option when you're uplifting whether it's a percentage or a fixed. So we're just going to assume on this occasion that we're adding a fixed £20 to our invoice. Expert Agent is then going to ask you to select the sales nominal. So this is going to be the nominal for the invoice that you are now generating. So for the total amount, the uplifted amount will go against your contractor uplift nominal. That's all going to happen in the background for you. So the only invoice that your landlord's going to see, the only nominal that they're going to see, is this sales nominal that you're selecting now. So I'm going to go for my repairs arranged by agent nominal that I've got set up specifically for my uplifted invoices. And then I'm going to save. And you'll see on here now, my landlord's been charged an invoice of £144. Because this is a sales invoice, I've got the print button option and the downward facing arrow. So if I click on that one, you'll be able to see quite clearly that the net of this invoice is the contractor total, which was 100 plus my 20. The VAT's 24 on the 120, which gives us a 144 total. Okay. So that's your different types of purchase invoice. So you've got a straightforward one, a commission, and an uplift. If when you select your contractor, you're not seeing the charge commission box in the bottom right hand corner there, it's because your contractor record hasn't been set up correctly for commission. So what you'll need to do is just open the record, and on the details tab of your contractor, in the middle column, you've got subject to commission. So you just need to make sure you've got a tick in that subject to commission box and that your standard commission rate is set up on that one. As we saw, you've got the option to edit that each time you create an invoice, but you just need to give it a standard commission amount and then just save that. And then when you return to the invoice, those options will be there. The third and final type of invoice that we're going to be looking at creating today is a recurring invoice. So these are recurring sales invoices, they're not purchase invoices. So these can be used for things such as your fixed management fees. So I'm just going to close the landlord record. I'm going to open up my tenancy record because we're going to look at creating a fixed management fee for this tenancy. So for your fixed management fees, you just need to make sure on the details tab of your tenancy, the recurring management fee is set to 0% because we don't want any percentage to charge. We're going to charge this as a fixed fee. So once that's set to 0 and you're happy that no percentage is going to charge, all we're going to do is right click from the tenancy record, go to financial, and we're going to go to create recurring invoice. So pretty much identical to our create an invoice screen for our standard sales invoices, our one-off sales invoices. I'm just going to select who you're going to charge the invoice to. So in this case it's going to be my landlord, he's going to pay the management fee. I'm going to give my invoice a description. I'm going to set my frequency as monthly because my rent is paid monthly. My start date is going to be today because the rent is due today. You want to make sure that start date is set up to fall in line with the next time your rent is due in Expert Agent. So if you're moving something over from the 1st of the month, you want to make sure that the start date is going to be the 1st of that month, and then that invoice will charge on the 1st of each month for you. Ending after, because this is a fixed management fee for my tenancy, I want it to end when the tenancy ends, so I'm just going to click tenancy end date there. And I just need to add an item to my invoice. I need to select my nominal. Agency fees is where your percentage invoices automatically go. They'll all go under agency fees, so feel free to use your agency fees nominal if you want them all to stay together. If you want them to be set up separately, you may need to set yourself up a separate nominal for your fixed fees if you want to be able to report on fixed fees and percentage fees separately. But I'm just going to select my agency fees on this occasion. It's going to be a standard VAT and it's going to be £100. I'm just going to save that there. And then I'm going to save again. Okay, so if I now return to my landlord record and come to his recurring invoices tab, you will see that he's got a recurring invoice set up here. As a fixed management fee, we can see it's monthly, we can see it's due to charge today and that it's active. If I need to edit it, I can. If I need to cancel it at any point before the end of the tenancy, I can. And if I needed to add another recurring invoice, I could from this screen here as well. Okay, so this is set up to charge today. As with previous training, this won't charge automatically. This will charge in the overnight run. So tonight I will see that charge and it will be sat on my landlord record when I log into Expert Agent tomorrow morning. So now we've looked at charging those invoices, we're just going to jump over onto the landlord statement. We're going to receive some money in to pay for those invoices, and we're just going to see the effect that that has on the landlord statement, and then we'll have a quick look at the contractor statement just to see how that looks with regards to the commission there. Okay, so I'm just going to right click financial and receive payment. I'm going to receive my money and I'm going to allocate it against all my invoices, and I'm going to save. So you'll see now that they've all turned to paid, so they're no longer outstanding, they've all been paid, we've allocated money against them, they are now paid invoices. We've got a payment received by landlord there. So if we go up to our contacts grid and we find our contractor there and look at their statement tab, what we will see for today, the 24th of June, is that we've got our pre-tenancy clean invoice, which was just our standard invoice we raised, that's there. We've got our commission invoice example invoice that we raised of £100, which is here. And our uplift invoice example, which is just at the set £100, is there. And we will also see our commission invoice, which is here at the bottom, for £9.60, which was our commission off of our commission invoice example that we raised there. So because this commission invoice example is a sales invoice, it's an invoice that we've charged our contractor, it will have that downward facing arrow alongside of it, giving us a breakdown. So that's the net, that was our 8%, our VAT, which gives us our 960 total. So that's an invoice now to be deducted off the balance that we have to pay to our contractor. Similarly, if I close the contractor record, I'm just going to open up agency payments for you. We'll see on our agency payments our sales invoice that we generated, so our relet, and we'll also see in here our uplift. Okay, so that's just the proportion that we uplifted, including the VAT there. So we've taken £144 off of our landlord, £100 of that is set to be paid to our contractor, and 44 is sat here to pay to us as the agent. And that's invoices complete for you. So we'll now close that down and we'll move on to look at payments, starting off with landlord payments. So all payments are made via your top finance menu and into the payments sub menu, with landlord payments showing at the top for you. So your landlord payment screen is going to open and it will show you a list of all your landlords who possibly have payments that you want to make. You'll have the option to select the branch at the top. So if you're an agency with multiple branches and you are data sharing throughout those branches, you will have the option to check all and view all branches. You'll have the option to set the payment date. So if you're looking to backdate a payment, please make sure you change the payment date before you do anything else. It's important that you set that payment date and hit the filter button before editing any of the payments. You've also got the option to select which bank account you're making your payments from. So if you're refunding a deposit and you hold your deposit in a separate deposit account, please make sure you're selecting the deposit account from the drop down at the top here. Anytime you make a change, just click that filter button and it will refresh for you. You've got the option to deselect all payments at the top here, which will ensure that all your landlords that were ticked are now unticked. And you've got the important Pay Landlords button on the right hand side. Now I'll just run through the layout of the landlord payment screen with you. You will be presented at the top with landlords who are highlighted in red. Now your landlords highlighted in red won't be automatically selected to pay, like the ones underneath will. They are landlords that Expert Agent is trying to highlight your attention to. As a landlord, you may need to look at before making a payment. It's just Expert Agent's way of making sure you're checking you know exactly what you're doing and exactly what's happening with the landlord before putting them a payment through. There are multiple reasons why your landlord might be in red, and they're not bad reasons. To have a look at why they may be in red, you can just use the drop down arrow on the right hand side alongside your landlord's name, and that's going to expand the payment for you, so it's going to show you what that payment's made up of. So Mr. George Cruz at the top here with 2 properties. I can see that he's got 3 Prospect Square as one of his properties. It's got a rent receipt of £400 and a management fee of £48, which gives him a balance on that property of £352. So that's pretty straightforward. Underneath he's got number 1 Prospect Square, Now, number 1 Prospect Square hasn't got any received funds, but it has got an outstanding invoice. So this property has got a negative balance of £250. And that's going to be the reason why this landlord is showing in red. He's got one property with a positive balance and one with a negative balance. So expert agent's giving you the option, if you wanted to use the money from property 1, 3 Prospect Square, to pay the invoice for property number 2, 1 Prospect Square. You don't have to. You could just pay him for number 3 Prospect Square and leave this outstanding invoice on number 1 Prospect Square until funds come in on that property. So it's highlighted in red to give you the option to do something with it if you wanted to. And Mr. Milburn underneath here, he's also in red. He's just got one property, 22 Conager Square, and he's got a rent receipt of £1,000 and a management fee of £66. He's also got a retention amount retained on the property of £1,000. So we've told expert agent that we need to retain £1,000 on this property for works or for a float or something like that. Either way, it's highlighted in red in the payment screen because technically there will be no balance to pay to him because we're trying to retain this £1,000. You could, however, use 66 of the 1,000 to pay this invoice if you wanted to. So it's just there to highlight that to you. Underneath your red landlords will be all your blue landlords. So these are the ones that expert agent sees as straightforward payments. 99% of the time they're going to be your landlords with one property. It's a straightforward, rents come in, management fees coming off and a payment's going out. Again, you can just use the drop down arrow to have a look at what that's made up of. So on this landlord, he's got 2 rent receipts there, 2 management fees and a balance of 152788. Underneath I've got Mr. Kerr with 2 properties. If I click the downward facing arrow there, we can see he's got 8 Trent Road with a rent receipt and 2 invoices, so the balance of 158 there. And 20 Trent Road, it's got 1 rent receipt and 1 invoice, and it's got a balance of 704, so it's a straightforward payment. There's positive balances on both properties. So what you'll need to do when you come into this screen is make sure that you're ticking all the boxes for the landlords that you're wanting to pay. If your landlords have got 2 properties and you're only wanting to pay for 1, you can just untick the one you're not wanting to pay for, and that will make sure that only the payment for this property goes through. Equally, you can include or exclude any of the invoices or receipts. So if, for example, I didn't want to take the money for this management fee off of my landlord this month, I can untick that one. Outstanding invoices total when I do that changes from 192 down to 96, and the payment amount goes up from 158 to 254. So you can include or exclude anything you want. It's very flexible there for you. Once you've made the selections that you wanted to, it's really just a case of coming back to the top and clicking your pay landlords. You'll get a pop-up to say, are you sure you want to pay these landlords? Which I do on this occasion, so I'm just clicking yes. You're going to get a green pop-up to confirm that all payments have been made, and you're going to be forwarded through to your payments to make report. So your payments to make report is the report that expert agent produces for you to make your payments from. So it's going to produce your report just for today, but you do have the option of backdating those dates if you wanted to see payments for a full week. It's a report that you can print. It's a report that you can export to a CSV file, so into a spreadsheet to use, or you can create a bank export from it if you use Bankline, if you bank with Barclays, or if you bank with Lloyds to make your landlord or contractor payments. So it's going to list the payments that you've made. It's going to list them by property if you've made payments for a landlord with multiple properties. It's going to give you the payment amount, the details, the property that relates to, the payment method that landlord prefers, and it's also importantly going to give you the bank details that landlord wants that payment paid into if you filled in their record correctly. It's also going to give you at the bottom a total that all your payments add up to, so that's going to be the total that's coming out of your client account as a whole. From your payments to make report, you can also print or email remittance advices or print or email statements. You can do that for all of your landlords who have had payments, or by unticking this box here and just ticking the one you want to send to, one at a time. If you tick them all, we're going to look at a couple of examples for you. So we're going to look at the prints as an example because they're going to give us a preview. The email remittance and email statements work in exactly the same way. It's just they're going to go without us seeing an example. So for the purpose of me showing you what they look like, we're just going to use the print options today. So just clicking print remittance advice there, it's going to bring us up a pop-up. That remittance advice is going to ask you whether you want to group by property or group by landlord. Group by property is going to produce you a separate remittance per property for that landlord with multiple properties. If you group by landlord, it's going to produce a remittance separately but all come out together. So it's going to be one property per page for that landlord. So select the option that you prefer and then click the save icon. That's going to take you through to select a template screen. So you may have a remittance saved already. If not, please come across to the default letters and just click on remittance at the bottom there. And it's going to generate your remittance one after the other to be printed out. So we'll see for Mr. Brooks for 113 the Hollow, we've paid today 152789, and that was made up of these monies that were received less these sales invoices, and it's going to give us a total deducted. And then it will move on to your next remittance and your next remittance. When you're happy and you've finished, you can print them out and then just close that screen. So print statements in a similar way. We're selecting our statement filtering. So filtering our statements by transaction is going to mean that everything that has been entered onto Expert Agent since the last time you printed a statement is going to show on this statement that we're producing now. So it's going to look at transactions that have been entered since the last statement and enter them onto this one. The other option is that you filter by date range. Filtering by date range is going to show everything onto the statement between the two dates you've got populated in these two boxes. So the option is yours, whichever one you like to choose. Leaving the ticks in these two boxes here to update last printed date and update statement number will mean that Expert Agent is going to remember what you've done today, and the next time you try to produce a statement, it's going to pick up on when the last statement was done and either put the transactions after the statement in if you're using by transaction, or produce it from a date range after this date. So when you're happy with your selections, it's just a case of saving. Again, you're through to your select a template screen, so you may have a statement already. If not, please jump over into Expert Agent default letters and choose your statement. Examples of what all the different statements look like are available in the manual, so please just go to the top help menu there and into the Learning Centre, and you'll be able to find those statement examples in the manual. And then your statement's going to produce to look like this. So it's going to show the rents that come in, our management fee that's coming off of there. With any sales invoices, it's going to give you a detailed breakdown of that sales invoice. So exactly the same as we were looking at on the Landlords tab. It's got the nominal, the net, the VAT and the total. It's going to give you any payments that have been made. And at the bottom, it's going to give you the totals. So as with our remittance, when we're finished, it's just print and then it'll come out for you, and then closing that screen. So we'll just look at email statements briefly. So again, it's very much the same. It's filtering by transaction or date. You've got the option to update the last transaction date and update the statement number. You want to put your email subject in there, so you can edit that if you want. You're clicking to select your email body template. So that's going to be the email that your landlords receive. And the statement template. So again, we're going to go for landlord statement detailed styled on this occasion. Now this tick box at the bottom, untick emailed records on completion. If I tick that box there and save to send my statements out, I'm going to get a pop-up to say my landlord statements have been queued to email. it's going to say 2 landlords have no email addresses or have chosen not to receive correspondence by email. So those 2 landlords that don't have emails or have been set up not to receive emails, you'll see remain ticked in this list. The one that does has been unticked. Now that's Expert Agent's way of alerting you to the fact that this landlord has had their statement, it's been emailed. These 2 landlords, they still need to have something done with them. So at this point you could then click your print statements button and print your statements out for these landlords that are still ticked. Once you're done with your statements, it's just a case of closing the payments made screen and you're back to your main menu. Once landlord payments are done, it may be a case of now looking at your other payments. So that's finance payments and agency payments. These are going to be the payments that are due to you as the agent. You've raised sales invoices on these, you've deducted the monies from your landlords or from your tenants, your invoices have been marked as paid, the money gets moved to here. So we'll see, as we were looking at earlier, our invoices from our landlord for our uplift and our straightforward sales invoices that we created. You'll also see these invoices have joined them in here now. So these are our commissions and invoices that we deducted when we were making our landlord payments. So as with our landlord payments, we've got the option to select branch, to set the payment date, and to select the account that the payments are being made from. We've also got the option to deselect all of these if we just wanted to pay 1 or 2, or select all if we're wanting to pay them all. When you're happy with your selection, you're just clicking Make Payments. You'll get a pop-up to say all payments have been made, and you'll be forwarded through to the Payments to Make report. Now this time, rather than being on landlord payments, we're on agency payments. Expert Agents listed for us an amount of all our invoices. These are VAT inclusive, and the total of these invoices, which on this occasion is 62499. So I know that today I need to transfer £624.99 out of my client account into my agency account. You don't need to do them one by one, that's by Expert Agents giving you that total at the bottom there. You'll see that there's no option for statements or remittance for your agency because these are payments that you're just transferring between your 2 accounts. After agency payments have been made, it's now time to look at contractor payments. So again, it's top finance menu, payments, and contractor payments. And all your contractors will be listed here that have had money deducted from them. So these are purchase invoices that you have created, that you have marked as paid, either by receiving money in against them, or by paying your landlord and allocating funds against them that way. As soon as your contractor's got a positive balance, they've got some money to pay, they will appear in this contractor payments list. Again, you've got the option to select the branch, select the payment date, and select the bank account. You've got the option to open your contractor's record from here. You can view a brief copy of their statement. Or if they've got any commissions to be deducted from their invoices, you'll have the option to edit that payment there. So our commission that we created earlier is listed under here. If you didn't want to pay this amount or deduct this amount from your contractor payment on this occasion, you could untick that one if you wanted to. Once you're happy with your selections, whether you've deselected all or selected all, it's time to pay the contractors. Again, you'll get a pop-up saying that all payments have been made, and you'll get forwarded through to the Payments to Make report for your contractor. And they will be listed in here. Here's the payment that we've just made for $440. As with our landlords, it's giving you the amount and it's giving you their bank details to allow you to make that payment and to use the bank export function if you wanted to. You have got the option for your contractors to print and email remittances or print and email statements. We recommend that you use the remittance function for your contractors. And I'm just going to show you what that remittance looks like. So this time we're selecting our contractor remittance. And it's going to show, dear Mr. Cleaner, we have paid you £440.40. and it was made up of our 3 invoices that we created, so our straightforward, our commission example and our uplift example, less our commission invoice there, and that's the 44040. So you can print and close that. Works the same way for your emails there. So the payments to make report isn't the only area that you can produce statements from. Statements for your landlord or your contractors can also be produced via the landlord record. We'll just close that payments to make report down, and we're going to go back into our landlord record and onto the statement tab, and we'll have a look at producing a statement from the landlord's record. So let's create a statement in the bottom left hand corner. Again, we'll have our statement filtering option. So if I'm going to filter this statement by transaction, I'm going to tell Expert Agent which transaction I want to show after. So on this occasion, we just want to look at the invoices that we've generated for our landlord. So we're going to go from the 13th of June, which was when we made the last landlord payment, because we want to show them everything that was entered after the 13th of June. I'm going to leave my save last printed transaction date ticked and my update statement number ticked, because Expert Agent is then going to remember that I've done statement number 8 today and what statement 8 contained. Anything I've entered after today is then going to be entered onto the next statement. Equally, if I was to produce my statement by date, I'm just wanting to produce the statement for today, the 24th of June. I'm going to leave these boxes ticked. Expert Agent is going to know that I've done statement number 8 and that statement number 8 ran up to the 24th of June. And when I come to produce statement number 9, the next time I try to produce a statement, it's going to run from the 25th of June automatically for you. So it's just a case of setting up that initial function of how you want the statement to produce. And as long as you leave those boxes ticked, Expert Agent will remember what you've done and use it to apply next time. Once you're happy, you're just clicking Save. You're finding your template, and it's going to bring you up that pop-up again as it did on the payments to make report, showing everything that's happened. So that's our invoice there, our purchase invoices, our uplift invoice with the breakdown because it's become a sales invoice, and the payment that our landlord made to us to enable us to mark these invoices as paid, and your totals at the bottom. You can print that from here. You can also email it from here. So it's just a case of you selecting the email subject. You can change that if you want. Who the email is going to. So you're going to check all. Any optional CCs. You've got the email format, so you can send it as an email body, or you can send it as a PDF attachment. You can add any one-off attachments. So this is the circumstance where if you wanted to add your purchase invoice, the actual invoice from your contract on, you could at this point. And then when you're happy, you're just clicking the send button. Once that's gone, it's just a case of saving and closing, or closing. If you save and close, in the events tab of your landlord, a copy of your statement will be there that you can come back into and review, print or email at any point. Also from the statement tab of your landlord, you've got the option to export the statement to CSV. So if your landlord wanted their statement for a yearly period in a CSV format, for example, if they wanted to be able to edit the layout or anything like that, you can export that to CSV for them. And that will show on there. And that would work in an identical way from your contractor record there. Equally with remittance, they can be produced from the landlord or contractor record. Rather than clicking Print Statement in the bottom left, you would just need to find the payment that you were looking to produce the remittance for in the line of the statement and click the Print button alongside that payment. Find your remittance template and you'll get the pop-up in the same way you did from the Payments to Make report. And from here, again, we can print or email a copy of that one out. Save and close, we'll pop it in the Events tab, so it's there to be reopened and used should you need it. So that's covering your landlord, contractor and agency payments, your statements and remittance, and the different areas you can do those, either in bulk from the Payments to Make report or one by one from the record itself. There are a couple of other payment types that you can have a look at through Expert Agent. You can also make your tax payments. So any NRL that you've deducted from your landlord throughout the course of the quarter. You can just use your from and to dates and click the Generate button. An Expert Agent will load for you any tax amounts that you've deducted in that period. You can then pay tax there, and that will again take you through to the Payments to Make report, which will give you a total, which in my case is £200.72, that we can then pay across to HMRC. Other payment types that are available via this report are tenant payments. So any payments that you've made to your tenant, whether they be deposit refunds, they've overpaid you rent, so you've refunded some money to them, they're all going to show up in this Payments to Make report in the same way your landlords do, with the payment amount, the address and all your bank details there, so you can make that payment from this report. Equally with your deposit payments, so any payments that you've made out, so you've paid your deposit over to the DPS or someone like that, all these deposits are also going to show on here, so you can manage all your payments from this one place. You can get to the Payments to Make report at any time via the top Finance menu, Payments and Payments to Make. It's going to load blank for you, so you'll just need to set the date that you're wanting to look at, whether that be today, whether that be a week. Make your selection and click Report. Make sure you've selected the right kind of payments that you wanted to be looking at, and you'll see all the payments that you've made to your landlords, contractors, etc. in that given period. So that completes your Basic 3 training for today. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to watch this video. Basics number 4 to follow.